The president sent a tweet after that meeting and said he valued the conversation. What part of that conversation do you think he valued? What's he going to tell us in the news conference later on tonight?
Well, thanks for having me here tonight. I think, both sides have spent a lot of time over the last few weeks dialing down expectations about what to expect from today's meetings. But the meeting is useful. If we think about, Nixon came home from China in 1972, he sat on the plane and he scribbled down his notes. And he had three categories of analysis. He wrote down, what do they want? What do we want? What do we both want? And if we think about that framework for today's meetings, what does China want? They want reassurance that the United States does not support Taiwan's independence. They want reassurance that the U.S. is not trying to contain China or start a Cold War. And they want to get foreign investment back on track. What do we want? We want assurances that China's not going to meddle in the Middle East and that it stays its hand in Ukraine and checks Russian power there. We want reassurance that China's not going to destabilize East Asia and invade Taiwan, continue risky maneuvers in the South China Sea. And we want China to cease its cyber espionage and stop stealing U.S. secrets. And then there's what we both want. And I think that's what we're going to hear after the summit today. So what do we both want? We want to prevent an accident from leading to a major military crisis. We want to stop the hemorrhaging in the U.S.-China relationship. And we need to find more areas of common ground, whether that's climate, AI and nuclear weapon systems, or fighting fentanyl. And I think it's that third category where we'll really hear some progress today.
Well, Amy, listening to you outline what China is trying to achieve here, a lot of it being foreign direct investment. For China, is this meeting with President Biden of equal or greater importance to the meeting he's about to have with business executives who can actually make that investment into China later this evening?
I think they're both important, right? I mean, over the last couple of months, American executives have expressed a lot of fear about going back to China. And so it's really important that Biden and Xi stand together. And as Biden, said to Xi at the beginning of the meeting this afternoon, you and I have to understand each other leader to leader. This relationship starts at the top. And I think American executives and others, academics, students, will look at this, the handshake, the smiles, and say, okay, it's okay to go back to China. So yes, the meeting with business executives is important, but the meeting between the two presidents is even more important.
A lot of people said in advance of this meeting that the biggest goal is to get to the next meeting. Amy, will there be one?
Certainly, I'd like to think so. I mean, obviously, we've invested a lot of time over the last few months sending our cabinet ministers over to China, trying to reestablish connections, whether it's commerce, treasury, state, John Kerry and the climate discussions. I have to imagine that there will be more meetings to come after this.
Well, and I wonder what the U.S. is going to have to give here in order to really make this conversation ongoing, just as China, I'm sure, is going to have to give a little ground, especially when we think about the issue of trade and tariffs that are in place, that were put in place under the prior administration, under President Trump, that the Biden administration has made a decision not to lift. And that doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon. How big of a roadblock is that into the actual normalization of this relationship?
It's not an accident that you don't hear about the trade war, right? I mean, that was the previous administration's first, second, and third talking point. I think the Biden administration is trying to expand beyond that, trying to, establish a means for communication on these kind of larger geopolitical national security issues that we have. And I think that they're going to continue to do that. So trade is definitely important. I don't know whether there's going to be lifting of the tariffs anytime soon. I can't imagine it. It doesn't even seem to be in conversation right now.
How come they aren't doing a bilateral news conference, Amy? Is that just still too much to ask for this relationship and for the Chinese government?
I think so. I mean, both of these presidents have domestic audiences that are very skeptical at best when it comes to China. And a joint news conference might just be too much to ask. I mean, it is really interesting to see that that's where we are when you think about the history of this relationship and the number of opportunities we've had to get the two presidents together. But yeah, I think a joint press conference is too much to ask at this point.